Most seniors drink coffee every single morning, and they have no idea they might be doing it wrong. Not a little wrong, completely wrong. And it might be costing them their health in ways no doctor has warned them about. Here's what nobody talks about. Coffee is one of the most powerful blood sugar tools on the planet. Real studies, real numbers. Scientists at Harvard followed over 100,000 people for decades and found that drinking coffee was directly linked to a significantly lower risk of developing type 2 diabetes. That's not a supplement company claim. That's Harvard. But here's the problem. The way most seniors drink coffee completely cancels out those benefits. Worse, it can actually spike blood sugar and make insulin resistance worse. So the same cup that could protect you is hurting you instead, and you won't feel it happening. The good news? A few simple changes fix everything. Once you know them, your morning coffee becomes one of the best things you do for your health all day. Now, before we get into all 4 ways, I have to tell you about number 1 first, because this one shocked the researchers themselves. They did not expect these results at all. They went in thinking they understood how coffee affected blood sugar, and what they found completely changed the conversation. Once you hear what they discovered, you will never think about your morning cup the same way again. Number 4, time it. Drink coffee at the right time, not first thing in the morning. This one surprises almost everyone because for most people, the very first thing they do right after waking up is brew a cup of coffee. It feels natural. It feels necessary. But if you're a senior trying to control your blood sugar, drinking coffee the moment you wake up is one of the worst things you can do. And the science behind this is genuinely eye-opening. Here's what happens inside your body when you first wake up. Your body goes through something called the cortisol awakening response. Cortisol is a hormone. Think of it as your body's natural alarm system. It surges in the first 30 to 60 minutes after you open your eyes, and its job is to wake up your organs, sharpen your focus, and get your blood sugar ready for the day. Your liver actually releases stored glucose into your bloodstream during this window. So even before you eat or drink a single thing, your blood sugar is already rising. Now add coffee on top of that. Caffeine stimulates more cortisol release. It tells your adrenal glands, 2 small glands that sit on top of your kidneys, to pump out even more cortisol. And more cortisol means more glucose flooding into your bloodstream. For a younger person, their insulin handles that surge quickly. For a senior with any level of insulin resistance, and research shows insulin sensitivity naturally declines with age. That glucose spike is harder to manage and stays elevated much longer. A study published in the British Journal of Nutrition found that drinking coffee immediately after waking, especially before breakfast, raised the blood glucose response by up to 50% compared to waiting. 50%. That's the difference between a normal reading and one that puts you in a concerning zone. So what's the right approach? Wait 90 minutes after waking before having your first cup. Let your cortisol peak and naturally decline on its own. Your body doesn't need caffeine to produce that morning cortisol. It already does it automatically. Once that window passes, caffeine no longer stacks on top of a cortisol surge, and your blood sugar response to coffee becomes much more stable. A 2022 study from the University of Bath confirmed that drinking black coffee before eating, specifically first thing in the morning, impaired the body's glucose response and increased overall blood sugar exposure throughout the day. The researchers were tracking healthy young adults, which means the effect on seniors, who already have slower glucose clearance, is likely even more pronounced. The fix is genuinely simple. Wake up, drink a glass of water, give yourself 90 minutes, then enjoy your coffee alongside or shortly after a light meal. Even something small like eggs or a handful of nuts is enough to buffer the glucose response and keep things stable. You don't need to change what you drink. You don't need to give up your morning ritual. Just change when it happens, and your body responds completely differently. Now that you know when to drink your coffee, let's talk about what you should never put in it, and what you should. If this is helping you, Hit subscribe right now. We post science-based health tips every week, made specifically for seniors. Number 3. Clean it. Stop adding the wrong things and start adding the right ones. Let's be honest for a second. A lot of seniors don't drink plain black coffee. They drink coffee with things in it: creamer, sugar, flavored syrups from those little plastic containers at diners. And while that might taste great, what's going into that cup is quietly destroying the blood sugar benefits of the coffee itself. Here's the reality. Coffee on its own, plain black coffee, has a glycemic index of essentially 0. It doesn't raise blood sugar in a meaningful way by itself. It actually improves insulin sensitivity in the short term because the chlorogenic acids in coffee, natural plant compounds that act as antioxidants, slow down how quickly your intestines absorb glucose after a meal. So coffee by itself is working in your favor. But the moment you add 2 teaspoons of white sugar, you've added about 8 grams of fast-digesting sugar that hits your bloodstream almost immediately. Add a typical flavored liquid creamer, and you're looking at 5 to 11 grams of added sugar per serving, plus refined oils that promote inflammation. And inflammation is directly tied to insulin resistance. A study published in Diabetes Care found that higher consumption of sugar-sweetened beverages, a category that absolutely includes heavily sweetened coffee, was associated with a 26% greater risk of developing type 2 diabetes. Artificial sweeteners aren't a clean solution either. Research from the journal Cell Metabolism found that certain artificial sweeteners, particularly sucralose and saccharin, can alter the gut microbiome in ways that negatively affect glucose tolerance. The gut microbiome is the community of bacteria living in your digestive system, and it plays a direct role in how well your body manages blood sugar. Disrupting it is not a small thing. So what should you add? If you need warmth or a hint of sweetness, use Ceylon cinnamon, not regular cinnamon from the spice rack, but Ceylon cinnamon specifically. A meta-analysis published in the Journal of Medicinal Food reviewed 10 randomized controlled trials and found that Ceylon cinnamon reduced fasting blood glucose by an average of 11.09 milligrams per deciliter and lowered hemoglobin A1C, which is the 3-month blood sugar average, by a meaningful margin. 1/4 to half a teaspoon stirred into your coffee adds real protection without changing the flavor in any way that most people find unpleasant. If anything, it makes the coffee taste warmer and richer. For creaminess, unsweetened almond milk is a great option with almost no effect on blood sugar. Full-fat coconut cream is another solid choice in small amounts. The fat actually slows caffeine absorption, which means a smoother energy curve and less of a cortisol spike as a bonus. The preparation really is simple. Brew your coffee, skip the sugar and creamer entirely, stir in the cinnamon, add a splash of almond milk if you need it. That's it. You've turned your morning cup from a blood sugar problem into a genuine ally. Now let's move to something most people never consider, and it has to do with how much you're actually drinking. Number 2. Limit it. Control how much you drink, because more is not always better. When people hear that coffee is good for blood sugar, the natural reaction is, great, I'll drink more. 4 cups, 5 cups. Keep it going all day. But that thinking gets seniors into real trouble, and the research is very clear about where the benefits stop and the harm begins. A large-scale analysis published in the journal Diabetologia reviewed data from over 1.1 million participants across 28 studies and found something very specific about quantity. The sweet spot for blood sugar protection was 3 to 4 cups of coffee per day. People in that range had up to a 25% lower risk of type 2 diabetes compared to non-coffee drinkers. But beyond 4 cups, those benefits didn't keep growing. For older adults with elevated blood pressure or adrenal fatigue, high caffeine intake started creating new problems entirely. Here's why this matters, especially for seniors. As you age, your body processes caffeine more slowly. The liver enzyme responsible for metabolizing caffeine, called CYP1A2, becomes less efficient with age. This means the same amount of caffeine that barely affected a 35-year-old might keep a 70-year-old's cortisol elevated for 6 or 7 hours. Prolonged cortisol elevation keeps blood sugar elevated, so ironically, drinking too much coffee while trying to protect your blood sugar can end up raising it instead. A study in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that in people who were slow caffeine metabolizers, a trait that becomes more common with age, higher coffee intake was actually associated with an increased risk of impaired fasting glucose. That's a complete reversal of what most people expect. There's also the sleep connection, which seniors often don't link to blood sugar at all. Poor sleep is one of the most powerful drivers of insulin resistance. A single night of bad sleep can raise insulin resistance the next morning by as much as 25%. According to research from the University of Chicago, caffeine consumed after noon directly interferes with deep sleep quality. Even if you feel like you fall asleep fine, it suppresses the deep stages of sleep where your body repairs its insulin signaling pathways. So every late afternoon cup that seems harmless could be quietly setting you up for worse blood sugar numbers the next morning. The practical guideline is this: limit coffee to 2 to 4 cups per day and stop drinking it by early afternoon, ideally by 1 or 2 p.m. For most seniors, that means enjoying 1 cup in the late morning and another around lunch, then switching to water or herbal tea for the rest of the day. And don't write off decaf. The chlorogenic acids that do the heavy lifting for glucose control are still present in decaf. A study published in the journal Diabetes found that decaffeinated coffee improved insulin sensitivity in a similar way to regular coffee. Blending regular coffee in the morning with decaf later in the day is a genuinely smart strategy for seniors who are sensitive to caffeine, and it lets you enjoy the ritual without the blood sugar consequences. And now, here's the number one way, the one the researchers themselves didn't see coming. Number 1. Position it. Drink coffee after meals, and let it work as a glucose blocker. This is the one. This is what the researchers found that genuinely surprised them, because it reframes everything you think coffee is doing in your body. Most people treat coffee as a morning wake-up ritual. But the most powerful thing coffee can do for your blood sugar has nothing to do with waking you up. It's about what happens when you drink it after you eat. Let's go back to those chlorogenic acids, the natural antioxidant compounds in coffee. These compounds do something remarkable in your digestive system. They inhibit an enzyme called alpha-glucosidase, which is responsible for breaking down complex carbohydrates in your small intestine into simple glucose for absorption into your bloodstream. When you slow down that enzyme, you slow down how quickly glucose enters your blood. That means a lower, more gradual blood sugar rise after eating, exactly what every senior with blood sugar concerns is trying to achieve. A clinical trial published in Annals of Nutrition and Metabolism had participants drink coffee either before or after a carbohydrate-heavy meal, then measured their postprandial blood glucose, the spike that happens in the 1 to 2 hours after eating. The group that drank coffee after the meal had a 30% lower blood glucose peak than the group that drank it before. 30% from just shifting when they drank the same cup. Researchers at the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health, when analyzing the long-term habits of coffee drinkers who showed the greatest protection from diabetes, found that post-meal coffee consumption was one of the most consistent patterns among them. These were people doing anything radical. They were simply having a cup of coffee after their meal, the way people do across Mediterranean countries, where post-meal coffee is part of the culture. Those same populations consistently rank among the lowest rates of type 2 diabetes in the developed world. This approach matters especially for seniors because older adults experience postprandial hyperglycemia, blood sugar spikes after eating, more severely than younger adults. Insulin secretion slows with age, and muscle mass, which is the primary site where glucose gets stored after a meal, decreases over time. So the blood sugar spike after a carbohydrate-containing meal tends to be higher and lasts longer in older adults. Targeting that spike directly with coffee is one of the simplest and most accessible tools available. No prescription, no equipment, no significant lifestyle change. The preparation is something you can start tomorrow. When you sit down for breakfast, lunch, or dinner, especially if that meal includes bread, rice, pasta, fruit, or any significant carbohydrates, plan to have your coffee at the end of the meal or within 30 minutes of finishing. Keep the cup clean, black, or with unsweetened almond milk and a dash of Ceylon cinnamon. That cinnamon combination is genuinely additive here. It works through a different mechanism but targets the same problem, so pairing it with post-meal coffee creates a real 1-2 punch for blood sugar control. And if you're eating a meal that's lower in carbohydrates, you still benefit. The chlorogenic acids continue supporting insulin sensitivity regardless of what was on your plate. If you've been drinking your coffee first thing in the morning on an empty stomach, try shifting just 1 cup to after your next meal and pay close attention to how you feel in the 2 hours that follow. Many people notice they skip the mid-morning energy crash entirely. They stay fuller longer. And those who are monitoring their blood sugar often see a noticeably flatter curve after eating, a calm, steady line instead of a sharp spike and crash. That flatness is what protects your pancreas, your blood vessels, and your long-term metabolic health. So here's the complete picture. Wait 90 minutes after waking before your first cup. Clean up what goes into it. Ditch the sugar and processed creamers. Add Ceylon cinnamon and unsweetened milk. Keep your intake between 2 and 4 cups and stop by early afternoon. And shift at least 1 cup to after a meal, where coffee works as a natural glucose blocker and does the most powerful work it's capable of doing. These aren't drastic changes. They don't cost money. They don't require willpower or a complete overhaul of your daily routine. They just require knowing what the research actually says. And the truth is, most people have simply never been told any of this by anyone. That's 4 smart adjustments to something you're already doing every single day. And the science says those adjustments can meaningfully lower your blood sugar, reduce your diabetes risk, and help your body manage glucose better. All from a cup you were going to drink anyway. Your morning coffee was never really the problem. The way you were drinking it was. Share this with someone you know who drinks coffee every single day, because they need to hear this too. Now, we want to hear from you. Which of these 4 ways surprised you the most? Share with us your experiences and opinions in the comments below. We love to hear them. Thanks for watching.